What the heck is going on with Boeing Starliner? It's been over 60 days since Butch and Sunny have been what some say is stranded in space. Others say this is unfair to say. However, we do not have a return date, and we don't even know what vehicle the two astronauts are going to return to Earth in. But we have learned some really shocking information from a groundbreaking report from Eric Berger of Ars Technica. Not only is the launch of the Crew 9 mission likely to be impacted by the Starliner issues and delayed, but the reason that it's going to be delayed, you might not be expecting.
This is supposed to be the flight to show, hey, everything is worked out. We have astronauts. We can start doing the mission. And some of these issues are pretty basic, and it's kind of shocking that we're at this point.
The Starliner astronauts, Butch and Sunny, have been in space now for over 60 days. The mission was originally only supposed to last a week, and here we are, and there are still no answers as to how they're going to return home. For many weeks, they were confident that they could return on Starliner, but now the story is changing. Of course, Boeing is having its own issues with Starliner, and these are creating a ripple effect. Now we're learning that NASA will likely significantly delay the launch of Crew 9 due to Starliner's issues. According to a new article by Eric Berger on Ars Technica, the primary reason for this delay of Crew 9 is actually pretty surprising. And Eric has been a longtime space journalist. He has sources that say NASA will be announcing this decision publicly this week. But he's pretty confident in his sources, and he's learned that officials are contemplating moving the Crew 9 mission from its current date of August 18th to September 24th, a significant slip. I've also been covering the Polaris Dawn crew mission, which I learned was actually going to happen after Crew 9, so that poses another question of if Polaris Dawn will also slip even further. The Crew 9 mission will carry NASA astronauts Zena Cardman, Nick Haug, and Stephanie Wilson, as well as a Roscosmos cosmonaut, Alexander Gorbanov. This would be for a 6-month journey to the space station. But now we're learning that NASA has been considering alternatives to the crew lineup. One scenario where they would launch 2 astronauts instead of 4, and this is due to ongoing discussions about whether or not Starliner is safe to return astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams back home. And NASA still has not decided, at least publicly, whether the Starliner vehicle will be used to fly its crew members home. As we know, they had several problems on the way to the space station. 5 small thrusters on the Starliner failed, and after many ground tests of the thrusters, as well as some brief in-space firings, NASA had planned to make a decision last week about whether Starliner will return with the crew, but a flight readiness review planned for last week was also delayed after internal disagreements at NASA about the safety of Starliner. This is according to the Ars Technica article. So yeah, we really want to know what's going on the outside, but I don't even think people on the inside know what's going on. If there's internal disagreements, it sounds like there's a lot behind the scenes that we just have no idea. And of course, as the days go by, we're getting more and more concerned about how these astronauts are going to come back home. So what would be the issue with returning home? Well, Joe Tegmeyer and I discussed this.
When you make a decision, there's ramifications for that. So you can think about a couple of scenarios. Let's say they decide to bring the astronauts back on Starliner and something happens. That's obviously going to be a major risk, a major issue that they're going to have to deal with, and that will definitely have huge implications for the Starliner program. If you make the decision to send it back unmanned and then have a rescue mission, whether it's SpaceX or anybody else, and it comes back okay, then you're a question about, were you just too, risk averse? Were you overreacting to the problem? So there's that, and then the last part of it is, if you send up, say, SpaceX Dragon to do a rescue mission, one, is it feasible? Can we do it? And what would that require? And I don't mean just can we have a capsule and get it up there, but there's going to be ripple effects with schedules, astronauts, missions. I mean, there's a lot to think about. But also, it goes back to that selection process of Boeing, SpaceX. We wanted to have two. Now we're having to use one to rescue the other, and the other one has not been able to prove that it's a viable option. So, there's a lot that is going through this calculation besides, is it safe for the astronauts by themselves? And, I told you there was NASA and, of course, Boeing. Boeing's looking at this not only as a reputational thing, but financially, they're taking a huge billions of dollars of hits on this. And even if this mission, say they decide to bring them back on the Starliner and it comes back and everything's fine, we already know it's delayed a year. So that's going to be more cost. They're going to evaluate what went wrong. They're probably going to have to do technical fixes. And most likely they're going to have to do a cert again, which is going to be all on Boeing's dollar. So I'm sure they're thinking about that.
At issue is the performance of the small reaction control system thrusters in proximity to the space station. So if enough of them fail before Starliner has moved sufficiently far from the station, Starliner could become uncontrollable and even collide with the ISS. These thrusters are also needed later in the flight back to Earth to set up the critical deorbit burn and entry in Earth's atmosphere. So many of us have called for SpaceX to have their Dragon rescue these astronauts, and apparently NASA has been studying this behind the scenes for over a month. NASA and Boeing engineers still haven't identified a root cause of the thruster failure, and they say that crew safety will be the #1 priority on deciding how to proceed. So now the idea that Butch and Sunny will return in a Dragon spacecraft is looking more likely, but remember, this is going to mess with a lot of logistics. So by delaying the Crew 9 mission, this will give NASA more time to determine the flight worthiness of Starliner. But we're learning from this groundbreaking article in Ars Technica that they also need to update Starliner's flight software. 3 separate well-placed sources have confirmed to Ars Technica that the current flight software on board Starliner cannot perform an automated undocking from the space station and entry into Earth's atmosphere. Whoa. So this is really strange because in May 2022, the Starliner vehicle test had a fully automated test. During that mission, the spacecraft flew up to the ISS without a crew on board and then returned to Earth 6 days later. Now, this was in a different Starliner vehicle, but it demonstrated that it's capable of autonomously docking and returning to Earth. So why would that capability be removed for this crewed flight test is the big question. So these inside sources that Eric has described the process to update the software on Starliner as non-trivial and significant in that it could take up to 4 weeks. So that could be why we will likely see a delay with the Crew 9 mission later next month. Now, Boeing put out a news release last week talking about all of the testing that it's done since the launch of the crewed test flight. They wrote, Boeing remains confident in the Starliner spacecraft and its ability to return safely with crew. But I just have to know from you in the comments, do you think that they should even try to come home in the Starliner, or do you think that it's absolutely crucial that they come home in a Dragon spacecraft? I think if there's even a percentage of a concern about safety, it's a no-brainer. Let's not use Starliner for these astronauts to come home. Let's do that software update, and hopefully it is able to return on its own uncrewed. Now, I know a lot of people have been fighting back and standing up for Boeing's Starliner and the situation, but you have to wonder, where is the transparency? And with time continuing to pass by and no real answers, it is becoming concerning. And I really hope that we can get Butch and Sunny home safely soon, and just that no risks are taken when human life is involved. Hope that you enjoyed this update. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens, and I'll keep following this story for you.
If you guys enjoyed this video and all of my Starship coverage, please subscribe to Ellie in Space. It's completely free, and that way you won't miss any future videos. If you want to take it a step further, please consider signing up for my Patreon. YouTube revenue can be very unpredictable and hit or miss, and you guys on my Patreon are why I'm able to take these trips and help me experience the life that I'm very thankful to live down here at Starbase and many of the other places that I've gone to report for the channel and the places that I'll be going in the future.